Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Locations, Locations, and Locations. It has nothing to do with real estate. It has to do with places where movie and television production have been filmed here in the state of Georgia. We can brag, we can drop a few names of some notables who produce things here in Georgia. Tyler Perry, Steve Harvey, Kevin Bacon, Richard Thomas, Whoopi Goldberg. She was just here last year. So we're going to take you to some cool locations on the south side of Atlanta in this video. Next week we'll be heading up north and getting you more locations. Again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's get started. We're going to head to SENOIA, we're going to head to Sharpsburg, we're going to head to Woodbury, and then we'll wrap up in the city of Gay, Georgia. Thanks for tagging along. Hope you enjoy the ride. Locations, locations, locations. And the famous water tower. I don't know if you recognize this church, but it's from the movie The Fighting Temptations with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Beyonce. And hey, Steve Harvey was in that one too. Show you a little picture of him in there. He was a radio disc jockey, and Steve Harvey had hair. This church is also pretty haunted. It has a lot of residual energy because of the woodwork that was carved into this church. So that's kind of a neat thing too. The church from the Fighting Temptations. This is in downtown SENOIA, Georgia. Do you recognize it? Imagine it painted white. This is your fried green tomatoes house. The wedding reception was out here in front of the home. And if it looks familiar to you as a bluish gray house, that's because it's also the Conjuring 3 house. Filmed the Conjuring 3 here as well. Then up on this bridge, leaning over the rail here, is where Buddy steals the kiss. The view down the tracks is where Buddy slides down this embankment, retrieving the hat, and he loses his life when his foot gets stuck in the tracks. And that is from the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, all filmed here on the south side of Atlanta. Another good view under the bridge. This is where Carol and Tyrese spend the evening. This is where they see their first sign for Terminus in the TV show, The Walking Dead. Right here under this bridge, a few years back, I was leading a ghost tour and we spotted a silhouette. I'll post that picture for you guys to see. A friend of mine snapped a picture of a silhouette under the bridge. She was joining me for my first ghost tour here in support of my ghost tours. I'll be doing a ghost tour up in Lula this coming year in October. And hereabout is the spot where Buddy got his foot stuck in the tracks and met his demise right here from the movie Fried Green Tomatoes, which is, of course, right across the street from the home. Cool thing about this home, too, is there are a few anomalies in the house. Up in the upstairs window, there was a woman named Sue who was caring for her mother-in-law Susie in her elderly years. And Susie saw people in her home, and then when Sue tried to distract her by looking out the window at the beautiful leaves of the trees, the blinds rustled as if birds had flown through them, and Susie said, "Oh dear, the spirits are gone." There's also the spirit of an infant upstairs. Those two Sues have passed on now, and they are buried in the local cemetery here. This is an old church. It was featured in the movie Pet Sematary 2. Hello up there, little Mr. Squirrel. And it comes with a grave site from a Civil War veteran. This house was featured in Pet Sematary 2. It was also purchased by Chandler Riggs, who played Carl on The Walking Dead, converted it into a house. We didn't live here long because they killed off his character. This is the home that was featured in the movie A Christmas Memory with Patty Duke. Also in that movie was Jeffrey DeMond, who also played Dale on The Walking Dead. It was also featured in the TV show Drop Dead Diva. The family who lived here, they sent their son to college with all the money they have procured, and the home is up for sale. You could come here and buy a piece of production history. If you come up looking in front of us, funny from The Walking Dead, we're going to take it right down the alley. This is where the governor from The Walking Dead was practicing his golf shots down behind us. So we're going to go down the alley for just a second. Just a few featured spots. SENOIA's pretty, if you're going to talk about South Side production, you cannot forget SENOIA. And this stone wall from The Walking Dead. This is where Enid's parents were killed by walkers. And that is still a piece of the wall left over from the Alexandria days. They brought it up here and it's on display. It says Outpost 22 on the other side. That's cool. Down those tracks, that's the path to Terminus. Behind that red fence is where Carl got sick after he killed the walkers that he enticed down the street. And there's where Carl sat on the roof. This is the pudding house from The Walking Dead. A full, big old 112 ounces of chocolate pudding. Taking a little time here in SENOIA because it's had so much production here. And the next house we're coming up to on the same street, well, they call it the coma house. On the show, Rick fell into a coma from this house. And he jumped off the back roof. Oh, they've cleared out a lot of trees here. You can really see the house now. This is where the claimers came in and attacked Rick upstairs. The bike was in the show. Now the next home is pretty cool. You might recognize it from The Walking Dead as well. This was the home of Negan and his wife during the apocalypse. Of course, her name was famously Lucille. And in the back, kind of cool thing you can see, just a touch of it, is an old spaceship toy. That came out of the old SENOIA Park and was in Alexandria. And there is a scene where Michonne and Rick are playing with Judith, and you can see that toy in the background of that shot. And now they've got it in their backyard. Pretty cool stuff. All right, we're gonna get out of SENOIA and find some other South Side locations. All right, guys, we are in downtown Old Sharpsburg. If you recognize those gourds hanging over the street, that's for good reason. This is where Maggie and Glynn came into town the first time.
That was the drugstore right there.
And they came into, I believe it was one of these two buildings. I'll double check when we get home and compare. I'm sorry about the truck in the front. Rick comes back here, and right here there was a fence between these two buildings, and that's where the kid got his leg impaled, and Rick brings him back and basically tortures him to death. After that, let me show you the front of these buildings a little better. The old pharmacy. We are in Old Town Sharpsburg, and this is the intersection where Maggie and Glenn come to town. Of course, they come to get Lori some supplies that were controversial. And I'm going to go in this antique store, see if they'll let me film in there, because in this antique store, this is where Rick Grimes breaks his rule that we don't kill the living. And here is the first time Rick Grimes kills a living human, a non-zombie. Let's see if it's okay for me to film inside. We're going to go see if it's all right. Look through this back door real quick, because this is the place that was set up as a bar. And this is where Rick killed the dude.
What?
This is where it was, back here. This is where they filmed for The Walking Dead. And Rick killed his first guy, but it was them or them. Do what you gotta do. It's an antique store now. Pretty cool place. Just thought we'd bring you in here to see. Coming in here to the covered bridge. This was the first place we ever filmed, but we're back because we're inside. This is pretty neat, huh guys? This covered bridge right about here is where Michonne meets Lydia from the TV show The Walking Dead. The walkers come up this way. There's a park over here. And we're going to go through here, then we'll turn around and go back. This little corner store is still dressed as Bryant's grocery store from the movie Till. Wow, that was awesome. I had a blast taking you guys to some of these cool locations for filming production of movies and television. I want you to tune back into part 2, and then part 3 will be on the north side. We'll have some surprises. We'll go to places where they filmed things like ABC's old show Resurrection with Omar Epps. We'll also go to the scene of the Mother's Day movie with Jennifer Aniston and Kate Hudson. For real. We'll go to the location of a new show called Dynasty. They're filming some of that. We'll also be featuring some Ozark locations. Do you love Ozark on Netflix? We do. Many of those were in our old backyard where we lived for over 30 years. We're very familiar with those locations. There's even going to be a surprise location. There's a church scene where they have a funeral in Ozark. And guess what? That's the same church Mark and I got married in 40 years ago. We're going to return there almost to the day, 40 years to the day, from the day we were married. We're going to get into that church and show you around. We're going to have a blast. Tune in a few weeks when that one posts. Hope to see you then, and I'm glad you enjoyed this video. Leave some comments if there's some other locations you'd like us to search for. We might even find a Stranger's Thing location next week. Tune in for that. Thanks again. Don't forget, click subscribe.